So it's been about 6 months since the arrival of the iPhone 8 Plus, and I've used this thing quite a bit since the launch time. In this video, I'm going to share with you my experience using this device day in and day out. Now, the first thing many people thought initially was, okay, this is an iPhone 7 Plus, but that's not quite the case. Although it does look very similar, the glass did make a difference in how this phone felt to use on the day-to-day. This phone has the A11 CPU and 3 gigs of RAM, so it also felt a little bit smoother, but design-wise, it's about the same device, but that glass, again, made it feel quite a bit different. But there's still no headphone jack here. That's probably never coming back to an iPhone. Only one thing about this phone is I did find it a little bit more slipperier than the jet black iPhone 7 Plus I was using before it, and it could drop out of your hands quite easily because that glass is kind of slippery if you don't use a case. Now, in terms of its build quality, I only have one scratch on it in 6 months, so I think that's pretty good for, you know, an iPhone 6 months old. Only one little scratch on it, no problems here. Now, the camera lens didn't scratch up at all, no matter if I place it on a table or not. And around the aluminum frames, I have no scratches there. I kind of like how this iPhone has aluminum sandwiched in glass. It's a really nice look. And the screen, I've kept the screen protector on it, so no problems there. Now, in terms of the display, pretty bright. I think my OLED displays get a little bit brighter on some other smartphones, but you know, I really enjoyed the landscape mode. This is actually coming to the Galaxy S9 series, but the landscape mode is very nice to have when you do just want to go through, you know, certain apps and have split pane views, seeing as this phone doesn't have no true multitasking. But that 401 pixels per inch on this display is definitely very sharp, and you know, you can read text no matter what you're looking at very easily. Once you get past like 350 pixels per inch, or you know, 325, somewhere around there, you don't really see too much, you know, pixels unless you're really close up on the display. And watching the videos in 16:9, the original format they're meant to be in, looked pretty great here on the iPhone 8 Plus. So overall, I would say this display, while it's not going to wow anybody in the store if you put it next to a Galaxy phone, it's definitely good enough for the day-to-day and very accurate for people who like to take photos. Now, software, it's iOS. I don't want to go on too much about this. It was buggy at first. It's getting better, but there's still a few bugs here. But the 8 Plus is one of those phones that runs it really great. So if you do want to run iOS 11, you might want to really take a look at the 8 Plus. It runs it better than most of the phones I have tried. Now, battery life is one area over my past 6 months that this phone has just really rocked it. I mean, in 6 months, it's still holding its full capacity. So, you know, it's great battery life. I do maintain it pretty well, but I can get through a full day, 7 hours on screen time easily. This is the best iPhone battery I've seen, and low battery mode only adds to it. So if you want an all-day workhorse, you want the iPhone 8 Plus. Now, my experience with the storage, I was a little bit worried about 64 gigs, but it actually hasn't been too much of a problem. With 2,500 photos, 318 videos, 85 applications, I still have storage to boot. So this thing is okay with 64. I mean, if you're really pushing it, you definitely want 256, but with Google Photos, with all the stuff you can do with external hard drives for pretty cheap these days, you know, storage is not too much of a deal. But camera, how has it performed? Well, it tends to stay a little bit more saturated than natural like the previous iPhone 7 Plus, but saturated photos can be really nice. In the portrait mode with stage light, mono light, studio light, natural light, contour light, all of this stuff makes this camera feel like the total package. But one area that I feel is a little bit annoying about the iPhone 8 Plus is that you have to go into the camera settings to access certain things. Now, you do have your basic controls like flash, HDR, live photos, timer, filters, but you have to go into settings just to change little things like 4K 24, which is new, and 4K 60, which is new. Now, those two new modes are amazing. Don't get me wrong, cinematic and smooth video at 4K, and you also get 240 FPS at 1080p. But just going into the camera settings is something I think we should see an update in iOS 12. It would be really nice. But the new file formats made storage a breeze, and your photos and videos actually take up less storage than ever before on the iPhone 8 Plus. So this is a fantastic camera with a large canvas for really framing your shots and stuff like that. Now, on the front, I wish the angle was a little bit wider, and it does take selfies that might show a little bit too much detail for people, you know what I mean, showing the pores, you know, the pimples, all that good stuff. But you know, this camera is really accurate on the front for a 7 megapixel. You know, it's not going to beat the Pixel 2s in my opinion, but it's okay. Here's some samples of the iPhone 8 Plus. You can see very good detail there in the flower. This billboard shows great colors and contrast, and some low light photo right here. Well, not the lowest, but still good detail. So overall, great camera. Now, audio quality. What about the audio quality? It's stereo speakers. It's the same one that's on the iPhone 10, and this is the loudest phone that I've ever heard. Now, I haven't heard the Razer phone, to be fair. That one might be louder, but I can't speak on that personally because I haven't used it just yet. but this phone is extremely loud for an iPhone, the loudest I've heard yet. Now, it's kind of similar to those stereo speakers you get on the iPad, not the 12.9, but the smaller one. So very loud, and you could really use this as like a little portable Bluetooth speaker, like you would use a Google Home Mini or an Apple HomePod. And it's not that loud, but it's loud enough for a phone. Bluetooth 5.0 is something I really liked having on this phone, and I love 3D Touch on here. For some reason, it just felt faster and smoother and more refined than ever before. And I loved landscape mode in the last 6 months. Now, a couple of things I didn't like is that the calculator still has no history. I love to look at my history when I'm doing calculations. Also, this phone didn't have any multitasking options. It feels like a waste of space sometimes on this large display, but that's been the case forever on the Plus iPhones. And I found this phone to be a little bit too heavy. It's the heaviest premium phone I bought this year, but overall, I think the iPhone 8 Plus was definitely a necessary move for Apple, and I think a lot of people are enjoying it. If you just want a rock solid iPhone that does everything without the changes of the 10, this is for you. If you find this video helpful, enjoyable, comments down below. Let me know if you have any more questions. Thumbs up. New here, consider subscribing for more, and peace.